Good morning. My name is Thapelo. My friend said I should teach you some Setswana words, so I'll teach you my name. Thapelo means prayer, so you could, that's one word you could learn. I am just blown away by what I've had to enjoy from different speakers in this event. I've made excellent friends. I've had an opportunity to learn because again, this is my first meeting to attend the LittAfrica, so it's just been a privilege to learn from different speakers who have come either to speak here or in the different seminars. So thank you very much for your invitation, and thank you very much to the different speakers who have had an opportunity to speak. I come out of this very much inspired. We have a lot of writers in Botswana, Christian writers, and we are excited about what we are going to do after this, to bring them together so that we can have an opportunity to speak to each other. As you will see, I have to speak about this issue of navigating challenges in publishing or in writing and spreading the message of hope through literature. And I have sort of paused a little bit. So I teach linguistics at the University of Botswana, but I specialize in lexicography, so I write dictionaries. I mean, lexicography is a fancy word for a dictionary writer. So I write dictionaries for English, Setswana. I also have the privilege to do a lot of work for the African Union, so I go around the continent, Namibia, Niger, Senegal, Mali, and so on, training African communities to write African dictionaries. So that's what I would love to do. I'm doing a little bit of work with the Bible Society. We are currently working on the new Setswana Bible translation, updated the 1971, to try and bring it to the language that people speak now. And it's an exciting project, really dealing with language and working with Hebrew scholars here in Botswana. I'm none of them. Anytime I say I'm a linguist, the next question is, how many languages do you speak? And that's a very old way of looking at linguistics. I'm a computational linguist, so I work on databases and dictionaries and statistical distributions and stuff, what you do with words and computing stuff with language. So that's more of my other side of what I do. Shall we start? So my work is really in lexicography. So I worked on dictionaries, which I've done some for the Oxford University Press. But I'm here to write a Christian book. And I think when I was sitting, I think, yeah, maybe I should write children's books. This will be kind of a lot of fun, especially for Botswana. So let's, is it working or it's not? It is. Okay, thank you. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So I've been working on the Isiswati dictionaries and stuff. So I've spent a couple of years in working on SWAT. But really, what I want to speak to, this idea that we need a context. When we are talking about words of hope, we need to acknowledge that we're living in a very shattered world. And around us, we are dealing with cases, very traumatic cases of divorce. In this country, we are about 75% of children born in Botswana are born outside wedlock, and they're raised without their fathers. So there's real trauma that a lot of young people in in this continent, in Botswana, in South Africa, in Eswatini, and so on, there's real people experiencing trauma. There are Botswana, Eswatini, and South Africa are experiencing the highest levels of rape. And they have the highest number, really in sub-Saharan Africa, of HIV. So there is real trauma that as Christian writers, as Christian speakers, we have to address. We need to know that what we are dealing with is real trauma. It's not something that is imagined, it's not something that is trivial. It's serious trauma. So there is violence. Anybody who has listened to news or watched news in South Africa, there are cases of xenophobia or violence between different communities. So what we are dealing with, or in the continent, we have tribalism. You go into Nigeria, different groups really fighting each other, taking turns. Now it's time for Igbos to rule, then it's time for these ones to. There is real trauma in the continent. This is a very important thing to say because it gives us a bit of a context. When we are talking about hope, know that we are dealing with real issues of trauma. So we really need to say what are the critical challenges or the central issues that we have to face in trying to spread the message of hope. I think we have to start with ourselves. And for me, it is this. Before we go out to spreading the message of hope, we must emphasize that those who are spreading the message of hope must be healed first. We have to go through some kind of healing. If you have gone through individual trauma, either of neglect, either of violence, that can really be helpful if you go through healing. Personally, I've had to go through a counselor, a very good friend of mine, struggling with a lot of personal issues, and he talked to me and said, you have gone through trauma right at primary school, issues which were not very obvious to me. But it's very, very important that we need to deal with healing and to say to those who wish to spread the message of healing, be genuine to yourself and say, I am passionate about spreading a message of healing, but I have been hurt, I've been traumatized. I need to go through this healing process so that I can go and spread the message of hope to others. That is important because if we don't do it, the kind of message we are going to spread is going to be a message of bitterness. It's going to be a message of anger. It's going to be a message which is really filled with hatred because we haven't healed. We haven't been restored ourselves. Therefore, we are not carrying the message of hope. We are literally carrying the message of revenge. So it is very critical to pause and say, those who wish to spread the message of hope to this continent or to any other place, they must introspect and be very, very genuine with themselves and say, I want someone who can help me deal with personal issues, real burning issues which are dragging me down. Once you go out of that, you will be fine. I am a great fan of J. John, one of the best speakers to ever come out of England. J. John says the heart of the human problem is the problem of the human heart. The heart of the human problem is the problem of the human heart. Unless we deal with the center of the human problem, which is the human heart, we can't really progress very far. We have to deal with the heart the center of the human problem is the problem of the human heart. We must zoom into the human heart to address it so that we can spread the message of hope. In doing this, I think it's very important to deal with the why question. Why do I want to spread the message of hope? Why do I want to go out to motivate others? What drives me? What is my motivation? Is this something that I want to do for a short time? Is it something that I would derive some benefit from? Because in that path, it may be long and it may be painful. So, the why question is central, because if we can deal with the motivating factor, sometimes people love the stage and love the applause. When it gets hard, they move back. I am into a lot of projects in my professional career which are for the long haul. So if we have to write a dictionary from A to Z, sometimes it takes 5 years, sometimes 6 years, sometimes 10 years. We've been reviewing a dictionary from 2012 up to 2023. This is where we're reviewing it, not writing it afresh. It's for the long haul. It can be boring, it can be painful to do. So deal with the why. Why do I want to do this? Is my heart in the right place? Why I want to go into spreading the message of hope. The point I'm making here is that one of the stumbling blocks, one of the obstacles, is that we haven't sorted out the why question. We are not clear about the mission. What do I want to achieve in this path of spreading the message of hope? Second issue is really clarifying the message. What kind of message do I want to take forward? What message am I trying to spread? What is the issue? What am I trying to address? If I'm spreading the message of hope, do I have a target? Who am I? Who is the intended recipient of my message? So, am I going out there to deal with schools, to deal with young people, to deal with what has God put in my heart? I used to learn from, spent a number of years under the leadership of a British church leader of New Frontiers called Terry Vego in Brighton. And he used to say, if you are targeting everything, you are most likely targeting nothing. Basically, you have no direction. You want to write a book about everything, which will bring hope to everybody about everybody's issue. So this issue of lacking a message could be one of the stumbling blocks to reaching the message of hope to individuals, because you lack a clear message. We don't know what you are trying to say, and why should people even care about what you are trying to say? And here I keep saying I'm not specifically talking about sermons or sermonizing. I'm really talking about what is it in your heart that God has given you and you are trying to do. Where have you been sent to and to do what? That is very, very important when it comes to the issue of the message. I have a message for young people. I have a message to deal with people in drugs. I have a message to deal with young people in schools. I have a message for the retired people. God has given me a message. You need a very clear message to know what you are doing. The next thing is to identify the demand and to have a very good understanding of what your audience needs. I have realized that some people like the idea of writing a book without knowing whether the book is needed. Okay. Now they have 1,000 books and they go around trying to sell them, and nobody wants them. And they say, please support him. Because they haven't dealt with the issue of demand. Know your audience. What does your audience need? Is your message needed by your audience? And where is your audience? Is your audience, for example, if you write a book and your audience wants a Facebook post, then your audience doesn't want to read a book, or it cannot read a book, it cannot even buy a book. Then your message stays locked in a library somewhere or in your garage. So if you understand your audience, you are much more likely to tailor your message towards your audience and to know how to present the message to your audience. So if you want to transform a generation, sometimes maybe you don't need to write a book. There are people every day who are sending out a message which is read by over 1 million people every day. And yet you want to publish a book which will be accessible to 500 people. Know your audience and where your audience is, because you might be preaching at a university when your audience is at a bursary. So if you identify your audience and you identify where your audience is, you are much more likely to be effective to a generation. Now, this is important because if you know your audience, don't try to get your audience to come to you, because it won't. So, this is the problem we've had. When people shift, we were hearing about technology. When people shift and they're moving towards videos, we still say, no, you people need to read my book. No, they are here, they've moved to the video space. Let us adapt our technologies to our audience so that we can reach our audience. This one is also very critical. If you are going to spread the message of hope, learn, read. If you are going to write, learn how to write. Learn it. It's painful to learn, but learn how to write in a persuasive manner. Learn the craft. This I find very weird to people who are writing. Anybody who wants to play jazz cannot come before us and say, the Spirit of the Lord says that a D minor 7 chord will just, the guy learns. You understand what I'm saying? Sharpen the craft. And yet, when it comes to writing, there are people who abuse readers. You write in a manner and say to your readers, look, don't pay attention to the grammar. Pay attention to the spirit. No, come on. This is painful. You're not being fair to us. Invest time on the craft. Sharpen it. There are actually even free classes on YouTube. Take classes, learn, and most importantly, if you are not prepared to read, you are not prepared to write. Read. There are people who are refusing to read. There are people who are refusing to listen, but they want to speak. We cannot have it that way. Read good books, learn from them, See how other people are writing. Find a style and learn from people who have come before you. Be inspired by others. Don't just be a teacher who cannot learn. So learn the craft and spend time developing your skill, and do not cut the corners. So this one is also very, very important. Provide practical advice in your message of hope. Practical advice. There are people who are going through real traumas. They are stuck. They want to know, how could I get out of this? There are people struggling with lack of forgiveness. You know, I cannot forgive my dad. I cannot forgive my mother. I cannot forgive someone who traumatized me. How can I deal with it? If you are to provide a message of hope, some people don't just need a verse. They need a real step-by-step guidance from you. They need you to say to them, look, I understand where you are. I understand that, hey, for you to deal with this, I would suggest the following. 1, do this. 2, do this. 3, do practical advice or actions. It's very, very helpful for people who need hope. There are people who have been discouraged. There are individuals, for example, who don't want to go to church anymore. They will tell you, I have been to church for many years, and here are the problems which I have seen at church. The guy who was preaching there stole my girlfriend. So how am I able to get back to church? It's a real dilemma. Practical advice. How should they navigate that kind of space? Okay. Stay resilient. Stay resilient. Stay resilient. The writing and the publishing world is not always easy. Sometimes you look for a publisher. Some people, when they look for a publisher and they don't find one, they say, I'm going to publish myself. Self-publish. They say, these traditional publishers, waste of time, easy route. What they mean is that they're going to print their book. That's what most people mean when they say self-publish. They mean, I'm just going to take it to the printers. And then, because it hasn't been edited properly and so on, and some of those challenges, you have all sorts of other problems. Get used to the idea that your book could be rejected. I find this, there are people who are entitled to acceptance. Look, a manuscript can be rejected. That's okay. This idea that nobody can reject my manuscript because of 1, 2, 3. I've had a number of manuscripts rejected. And they write a very nice letter and say, we apologize to say, while we think your manuscript is excellent, unfortunately, we can't publish it at this time. We suggest that you might send it to the next guy. It's very nice. It's a very polite way of saying, well, we can't publish it. Whatever. Stay resilient. The idea that, especially some of us from the academic world, our academic papers get rejected, thrown out, okay? Just get used to the idea that your book or your manuscript may not be accepted, okay? Or after it has been published, it may not do very well in the market, okay? It may not be the #1 bestseller, okay? And you might go around trying to promote it and people may not be interested very much in it. Stay resilient and don't stop writing. So that is what I mean. Distribution and all of these issues. I think this may be the last but one. Collaborate. This has been mentioned before. Don't just be like a hero riding into the sunset on a horse alone. It's possible to work with others. Okay? Write books, collaborate on those books, and make sure that sometimes, even across countries, maybe in Botswana, write a book with someone in Ghana, that book will be accessible, be sold in Ghana and in Botswana. So working across these spaces is a very important point. I think this is my last slide. Promote your work. There are different channels, especially those online channels, different channels. Try sometimes being invited to speak can really help you promote your work. Bring your books, like different people have been on this podium and they have held their book nicely. This is my book section. So many people, especially who haven't been in the publishing space for a long time, usually think that it is the publisher who is responsible for promoting their work. The publisher, after they publish your work, they say, by the way, you have to go on the radio. Why? They say, no, people will believe you, will hear from you. So this has been discussed, I think, in the previous days about how the issue of promoting work. So these are some of the ideas that I thought I should share with you briefly about some of the challenges, navigating the challenges that we usually face in trying to spread the message of hope. I hope you found some of those, or at least one or two useful. Thank you very much.